Today we're going to go over 31 essential tips for DaVinci Resolve 16. These are efficiency tips and proficiency tips. Okay, first thing, if you're editing 4K footage or you don't have a super powerful machine, you're probably going to want to run optimized media. So on the bottom right hand corner here, there's a little gear icon. That's your project settings. So I'm going to run ProRes 422 proxy. I'm on a Mac. I can do that. If you're on a PC, it's probably going to be some form of DNX. HD is probably the choice for you. So that's it for that. You want to make sure that your playback up here uses optimized media if available. If that's unselected, then even when you create optimized media, it's not actually going to use that. But we still don't have optimized media. What you need to do is we'll go into the media tab. So we go into a folder and we'd select everything and right click and choose generate optimized media. Now, unfortunately, I can only do one folder at a time. There is a trick, however, so let's cancel this. There's a trick to doing all of your footage when they're in separate folders. If everything's all in one folder, you're fine. You can just do it the way I just showed you. Otherwise, what you want to use is smart bins. So if you've not used smart bins before, let me show you what you do here. Go into the smart bins area, right click, and click add smart bin. Now it's going to ask us for some criteria. Let's call this all footage. And we're going to choose under this section here, we're going to choose start frame. And is fine, and then we just want to put 0 because I just happen to know that pretty much all the footage I have, it has that in common, has that field in common in the metadata. So we create smart bin, and now when I click all footage, I am seeing all the footage that's in each of these bins. So see, we see some Cuba footage, we see some New York City footage, some of the Bubba's Thumb, Stakeout, and BTS. See, all that footage is represented here in the all footage. So now I can just select all, right click, and select generate optimized media. Okay, so that's that. And I'll show you in a little bit one of the reasons why this is actually going to be quite helpful. Okay, tip number 2 is actually not even in DaVinci Resolve. It's just about, and it has to be said, keeping the same kind of folder structure on every project. Let's just create a quick project here. Top tips, we'll call it. What I normally would do is I would always create like a footage folder, music folder, sound effects. You know, if I have stills associated to my project. Anyway, I try to keep the same structure all the time on all my projects, and that way I'm not guessing as to where things go. Anyway, it does save time in the long run. Tip number 3. Actually, tip number 3 we actually did. That was smart bins. I kind of skipped over that and added that into what we were doing with our generate optimized media. Tip number 4, metadata. Let's just show you quickly. We'll go to the edit tab here, or edit page as they call it. If I double click on a file, I can go into the metadata over here. If I click on the top right here, now you notice I can't edit it or anything. If you just click over here, you can go to all groups and then you can edit. So your main information you would normally be looking for, what codec, the audio codec, frames per second, so on. It's all right here. You can put in camera info, all of that. Now here's the tip. You don't have to just do one file at a time. I notice these have a bunch of cars in these shots. So let's say I want to select all the files that I see a car in. Let's just say those are the files I want. I can go over here and in the keywords, I can add car, which as you saw with smart bins, later I could use it for smart bins. A number of ways that you could use this, but this is how you would add to multiple files at once. So now see, I apply that, I select something different, I come back to one of the ones with a car, I see that it has a car in the metadata, this one has a car in the metadata, but this one we didn't, see it doesn't have car in the metadata. That's how that works. And now that we're in the edit page, I can show you this, which is tip number 5, live media preview. So if we double click on a file, and if I click up in here and click live media preview, what that does is it gives me the preview as I scroll left to right over the clip. And then without even having to click on the next clip, if I just hover over the next clip, watch what happens. See? Any clip I do. And the cool thing about this is to mark it in and out on a clip, you probably already know, it's I for in, O for out on your keyboard. If I wanted to just quickly scroll through here and I thought, oh, that's where I want it, my in point, continue to scroll, out point there. Let's just jump to the next clip. It's kind of shaky there. Let's find, okay, there's some movement in, out, and I can create all these in and out points on my clips without having to double click each one, bring it into the viewer and so on. So that's your live media preview by, again, top right corner, live media preview, make sure that's selected. Now, one of the things that might throw you off is if you double click, if you have a timeline, let's say I'm gonna take one of these clips, just so I've got a timeline. Let's go back to New York City footage. In and out here, just so I've got a bit of a timeline. Okay, so I've got a timeline. Now, if I go back to my footage and I try to scroll over, see it's not doing it. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I haven't double clicked on one of the clips to start with. You at least have to initiate that process by double clicking on one of the clips. And then from there, see, I don't have to click on this next clip or this one anymore. So that's how that works. But sometimes it throws you off because you're saying it's not working, and that's just because you're probably on your timeline and you haven't initiated the clips again. So that's how you get that moving. Now, one of the things I said is that your optimized media is going to benefit you in other areas, and this is one of the areas right away. So see how smooth the playback is with all of these and how quick it pops up. Unfortunately, especially if you have 4K footage, if you're running at full resolution and your computer is not, super powerful, you might find that it stutters so much, and then when you switch from clip to clip, it feels like the next clip's not even loading. So just be aware, it is actually going to work, it's going to load, but if you're running huge files, you're going to see that, and it's going to feel like it's not actually working. So it's best bet just to run your optimized media, and you'll be happy. Okay, so the next item. So here's a good example. So this is New York City, and we're at One World Trade Center. But from this shot, from the beginning of the thumbnail, you can't tell that that's what this shot is. So I think it would be helpful if just the thumbnail represented what the key point of the shot is. So a way of doing that is just scroll to where it makes sense, the picture that you want to see, right click, and say Set Poster Frame. And now, I can double click these other ones. I'm on these other screens, but see now that keeps, I can even bring it back to the beginning there, but then if I take my mouse off of that, it pops back to that poster frame. Okay, and tip number 7, let's go back to the cut page. This is only available on the cut page, and that is this new feature called source tape. So within the folder that I'm in, I can treat this, if this is day 1, day 2, day 3 of a shoot, I can treat this entire thing like as if it was tape instead of separate clips. And by clicking this button here, and see, it's the entire day, and it's sequential too. This would be the beginning of when I started shooting. This would be in the middle, this would be at the end. So at any point, you can just kind of scroll through everything instead of having to bring up into the viewer every single clip individually and edit that way. So then I can just create my in and out points, drag that bit down, continue on for the day. So that can be time saving. Unfortunately, that feature is not available in the edit page, but and there's some other advantages to using the edit page, but that's fine. There's huge advantages to using the cut page. So just knowing that it's there, you can figure out whether it's going to be useful to you or not. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say I just zoom that up and reposition it a little bit. And let's say that's the way I wanted a bunch of footage, a bunch of clips to be modified. Well, I can just copy and then come over to the next clip that I want to have that same, not just the transformation things that I changed, but anything that changed on that clip, I can now paste down onto this next clip and it will apply. So I would right click, and now you don't want to do paste because then you'll actually paste over that with the clip that you just copied. You want to paste the attributes, and then it gives you options of what you want to do. So you can just choose all the video attributes like that, or let's say you had modified the volume. You can apply that as well to multiple clips, not just one clip. You can paste it down to multiple clips if you like. So I hit that and see that now that's reframed that shot as well. So that's how that works. I'm going to just undo these things here. There we go. Number 9, it's quite easy to do this one. You just want to disable a clip, select it, and hit D on the keyboard. It's disabled. See, now it's not playing. Hit D again when it's selected, and it re-enables that clip. Okay, so number 10, to duplicate a clip. Select the clip you want to duplicate, hit Option or Alt, and drag it any direction as long as there's a space available. 11 is to, let's say we want to cut this up. Select the clip and Command B. We'll split it wherever the playhead's at. Zooms. Command plus, Command minus. I'm sure everyone uses that, but you might not know about Shift Z. You completely zoom out to whatever you have in your entire timeline. You will see that if you hit Shift Z. Hit Shift Z again and you're zoomed back into where you were. 13, cropping and transformation, clip versus output blanking. So you can do it on a clip. Select the clip and I double click cropping there and see I can crop it. It's usually when you're going to do this letterbox concept here. You could do it like this. But then you come up to this clip. No, this clip doesn't have it, right? And that's fine because every clip you might need to treat differently for whatever reason. But if you want the whole project to have it, you don't have to go to every single clip or copy and paste those attributes on everything. You just go back and undo this. You can do it with output blanking, and that you would do it on the color page. Click there, and where it says sizing, we click that, and we choose output sizing, and then you get this blanking option. And see, bottom. Now, even back in the edit page, we can still see too, we've got that on every clip now. Okay. And this is how you actually have to undo it. You have to come back to the color page, and go to output sizing again, and just click this little wheel here to reset things. Okay. Okay, number 14, you can actually copy from one project to another project. So this might save you time. Let's just demonstrate that real quick. Go to Project Manager. Actually, before we do that, say we're going to copy from this project to another project. So we've got cabs in here. Let me just add crossfade at the beginning of that, just so I'll show you that the crossfades and everything come over. So we'll copy that, Command C, and we go over to Project Manager, and let's say go over to the Cuba. At the end over here, I'm just going to right click and hit paste. And see what I got. I got that New York footage in my Cuba project. And if we zoom in, you'll see it even has that crossfade. Number 15. It took me a while to actually find out how to do this, so hopefully this is news to you as well. From an in and out point, you can actually play back. And I used to do this on Premiere all the time, but I couldn't find for the life of me a way to do that in DaVinci Resolve here. I want this to just play back from the in point. It is Option/. You can also loop just your in and out points. So let's shorten this. And you see I clicked on this little loop here, and then I play it. And it just keeps looping that section, which is great when you're trying to work on audio effects, actually. That's where I find it the most useful, but you can use it anywhere. Just hit X on our keyboard to remove this in and out point. To get to your blade tool, it's just B on your keyboard. These are real simple. You may already know these, but I'll just quickly hit them. A on your keyboard gets you back your arrow. T on your keyboard gives you the trim tool. That's a couple of the main ones. Besides those, let's talk about markers. You might not be using them and you might find them useful. M on your keyboard will give you a marker. If you double click on the actual marker, then you can get into more details. So you can put keywords or notes on there, which is kind of useful. The first time I started using markers, I didn't realize how easy it was to put notes there. There's also something, if you have the clip selected, if I have the clip selected over here and not just playing on the timeline, I actually have a specific clip selected. If I hit M, I'm actually putting the marker on the clip, which is useful if you're moving the clip around. But not so useful if you actually wanted it to be on the timeline. So anyway, that's how you do that. You also just select it. You can see there's a little white outline on it, and you hit delete on your keyboard to get rid of it. There's also an option, let's just add a couple markers here. You can right click and remove selected markers, remove all markers. Okay, next let's jump over to the color tab. Grades. So let's just, let's say I just modified this a little bit. Just so we can see that I've done something here. It looks terrible, but let's make sure we can see it. Okay, so if I wanted that grade to be on this clip, there's a few different ways I would do it. You could just copy and paste. Command C, select the next one, Command V. See, and this is not replacing the clip like it does in an edit mode. It's just actually replacing the grade. So that's one way. If you just want to do it once, I suppose that will be helpful. Let me just delete this and re-add that. Okay. The other way is by creating a still in your gallery. So you would do that by clicking View, Stills, Grab Still. So actually, let's do something else with, say, this clip. Warm up the whole thing like that. Now I'll go View, Still, Grab Still, and it creates a little preset there for me. So then if I want to apply that preset, say, to the New York footage, I can just do that, grab this, drag it, bam. Now it has that warm color on it. See if I undo that, it goes back to the cool color again. Another way we can do this is by joining things in groups. So let me just put that back to what it was. So you know, we have New York footage in here and we have Cuba footage. So let's select Cuba footage and right click and we say add into new group. I'll call this one Cuba. We'll select all this, add into new group, NYC. So here's the thing. The trick, because there's a bit of a trick to it, because the way it works is if I color grade this and then I select the other footage, like they're in the same group, so they're all supposed to actually change color, right? But it's not going to work because it's only up here where it says clip. I have to drop this down to group, one of the group options, pre or post clip. So let me just undo the change that I did there. So I'm starting with a clean clip. Switch from clip to pre-clip in this case. Let's just say I want to reduce my gain and put a blue hue over in the shadows anyway. Looks terrible, but let's just say that's what I want. Now, any of the clips there, see, they all have that treatment on it now. But let's say this one, I thought I want to do something a little different. Then I just go back to the clip itself and I can still do adjustments to further add color adjustments beyond what the whole group has. That works like that. Okay, and tip number 21 is working with LUTs. So up here on the top left here, Well, here's the way I used to do it. Right click here, you click LUTs, and select the LUT that you want. Issue there is now if I want to audition the next one, I got to go through this menu again. So that can be cumbersome. But if I just go over here, I can even hover over all of these LUTs and get a sense of what it's going to do. And then I can go apply it, drag and drop. The other thing is if you already have a LUT, you can right click and say reveal selected LUT. Now that won't be there if there's no LUT already selected, but if it is, then what it does is it opens up this tab over here on the top left and it selects the LUT that you had applied. And the other thing that's really important here is, to me, you always need to dial in a LUT. I don't like to put in necessarily 100% of the LUT. And the way you control that, it would be nice if there's just tools right here to do that. But you can do it if you go into this button here where it says key, and then where it says key output, you can drag this, because this is the LUT that's on that node, and then you can drag this down. You can punch in like 50% basically. So you can dial in exactly the amount of LUT that you want. 23 is about how you can quickly find all of your ungraded clips, for example. There's a few different ways you can look at what you're seeing in this timeline here. If you go up to here, you can get clips, and it defaults to all clips. But you can also just do ungraded clips. Okay. And you can see the other options here too. You want to just look at your graded clips alone. Anyway, so there's some options there. This one actually has to do just with the look. It's just kind of a bonus one here. I'm going to throw in for something I like to do on most of my footage. Let's say here. Over here, luminance versus saturation. I do this all the time. What's kind of cool in DaVinci Resolve 16 is you can now see your histogram here, your shadows here, and your highlights over here. So you know that this is where you start to get into your blacks. If I want to click here in this particular image, and I want to make sure that my blacks are true black, I could just do this. So what I'm doing is, based on luminance, based on the darkest parts, I'm removing color information. So it's virtually black and white in those areas, which, like a lot of good cameras, one of the things people talk about is how clean the blacks are. Well, this is one way of cleaning up your blacks, which is kind of nice. And same thing with the highlights. You can see how much highlight information you get. So this is probably where it's going to start mattering for me on this particular shot. So I'll just bring it in. So now I know that when there's white there, it's pure white, and when it's black, it is pure black. There is no color information in there. If you want to really push the limits here, we can see this a little easier. It's not necessarily the best image to prove this point, but if you look at the shadow details in here, now watch what happens when I'm going to toggle off with my Command D. I'm gonna turn this node off, but keep an eye on here. I'm gonna turn it off now. See how it fills full of color information in the shadows? And I do it again, and it stays dark. It just gives you a kind of a filmic, cinematic kind of look to your footage. So you can go too far in certain file types that will really give it that bleach bypass look. Maybe that's what you're after. Anyway, it's kind of a side note tip there. I digress. Now, some of you may be familiar with getting a full screen. Unfortunately, you can't do any color grading when it's full screen. That's like Command F. You can see it a little bit better, but it's only scaling up kind of a low-res version, especially if you're working in proxies or optimized media. So, but if you can get a little more real estate here, if you just use Option or Alt F, right? As long as you've already selected, you can just toggle that back, go back here, make sure you're on the node that you want to make your adjustments with, and Option F, and you can get quite a bit more screen real estate for your color grade, so you can see a little bit easier what you're doing here. Okay, the next tip is related to audio. Very, very simple. Just make sure you name your tracks what they're supposed to be so you can find them. Okay, this is related to adding tracks. So you want to make sure that you're specifically adding audio tracks that are stereo or mono, depending on what you're needing. I noticed this when I was trying to add a music track to an edit that I was doing, and then I noticed later that it sounded very mono, and then I realized that I dropped a stereo mix onto a mono track. So you want to make sure that when you right click here and you either add tracks this way, that you're choosing the right track type there, or hit add track and specifically choose stereo or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And then, like I said before, make sure you name your track properly so that when you're dragging, especially stereo files, that they're going to go onto stereo tracks, because you can't really tell just from the interface here whether this is a mono or a stereo track. That would be a nice feature. Number 28 is using templates or presets. You can do this in Fairlight. You can do this I do this in my other audio program. I use Logic for a lot of things as well. And especially as you get a good dialogue mix, you've really EQ'd, especially if you're a YouTuber and you're doing your own voice, you're doing using the same microphone kind of in the same environment all the time, you can actually build on every edit. Like every edit you get a little bit better, you realize, oh, that, it wasn't loud enough, or it wasn't punchy enough, I needed more compression, or there was some frequencies there that were causing me problems on certain speakers. Well, you could just fix those and then save that out as a template, and that way you bring that template in for your next project and you don't have to do any of that work then. It doesn't help you if you're using different audio sources, different voices in different locations. You can still create templates for each of those if there is some consistency with going back to the same places or using the same people. Anyway, so let's say we have, say this was what our EQ was, and I could put in a bunch of plugins as well, but let's just throw in okay. So let's just say these are the settings. I got that compressor plugin and an EQ on there. So what we do is we go up to Fairlight and go to Presets Library, and we select a track. That's why I said it's important to name the tracks. And this is the track, the dialogue track, and we could just use a equalizer presets, and we can save it, and we can name that. But if I wanted the entire track, I could just say Global Track Presets, and then select the dialogue, and save new, and just say Jimmy at desk. Now, any other project I have, I can just pull that up. So let's say I wanted to apply it to this track. We hit Presets Library. I select the preset. I select the track that I want to put it on, and I hit Apply. And now you'll see those have been added to that track. Okay, so Delivery tab, and this is simple and kind of obvious, but just make use of these presets. Not the presets they give you necessarily, but the ones you create yourself. So if my projects are always like this, and I always bump up my bit rate for my 1080p files, and I use the multipass encode, then I can click on this right here and say Save as New Preset, 1080p, YouTube, good quality. Okay. I can just pull that up real quick on the next project, and I'll have to redo that every time. Okay, so this one is about in and out points on your renders as well. So if you just want a little bit of the clip, you can just do in, I on your keyboard, out, O on your keyboard, and just render just that section if you're testing things. And then you just right click on this little gray area here and hit entire timeline to get that back. And finally, number 31. Related to the massive amount of space that gets chewed up on your hard drive from your cache files. And there's two ways you can deal with that. One is from within the project, and the other is from within the file system. I'll show you both. First, within the project, you go to Playback and click on delete optimized media. That will do it for that one project. But I guess the problem is if you have a whole bunch of projects, if you don't have the project anymore, if you deleted the project out of the interface, I mean here in your project manager, so if I deleted the Cuba project from here, then the files are still, the cache files are still going to be on the hard drive. So you want to make sure that those are cleaned off. So I'm going to show you that next. Okay, so first you want to find out where your cache folder is. So if you go into the project settings down here, bottom right corner, we go down here where it says cache files location. Cache clip is the name of the folder. If you wanted to redirect this to another drive, you click browse, another drive or another spot on your hard drive. You would go through here and you could do that. Now, the issue is, where is that folder? Because it's not telling me here, right? The answer to that is in your DaVinci Resolve preferences. It's going to take the first mount location here, your media storage locations, just automatically. You have to ask Blackmagic why that is, but that's how it is. So mine is volumes, data, movies. So I got to find the cache clip folder in this location. So I'll go back to my operating system. And data, movies, cache clip. And the folders are named these weird things, but there is a quick way to find out. There's an info.txt in each of these folders. And see, it can tell me this is a Cuba folder. See, so it gives you information on each one of the projects that you have. So then you know. This is only a cache folder, so you can effectively delete the entire folder. You can delete that. Like that, and it's fine because it'll just rebuild itself. Now, that's also, I'm going to undo that. Which one am I in now? See, this one has an optimized media. So that's the other thing you can do. You can leave the rest of the project there and just get rid of all your proxy files. Like, it still has your original files in whatever folder location that you have set up for your project. But these are all the optimized media files here. So, and look, we can take a look at how much space is being used. Is 4.6. This is just the demo that I'm giving you right now, which you saw there's not that many clips, but we've got almost 5 gig of cache files on here. So if I don't need this, which I won't after this tutorial's done, I'm going to delete that because I regained 5 gig of data, and most projects are 45, 100 gig, whatever, a lot more than 5 gig. So you can see how your hard drive can be chewed up by using optimized media, but it's only temporary. It's for the use of editing to speed things up. Once you're done editing the project, you're not losing anything by deleting the cache files, except that if you do need to bring it back up, it's going to be slow running until you generate new optimized media again to get that speed. But anyway, those are the 31 tips. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It helps out the channel, and I will see you in the next one.